Thangam Debbonaire, please.
I feel quite emotional to be in the Quaker Meeting House and with Bruce Kent. And I was brought up a Quaker. I'm sorry. I was brought up a Quaker. I come from a family of Quakers, so this always feels like coming home whenever I step through these doors for any particular reason. And also, I have very early memories of making hot cross buns with a C&D symbol on them. Why we couldn't send them to you, because they wouldn't get to you in time. And so it's kind of a combination of Quakerness and C&D-ness. But also, I think it's an incredible privilege to be a parliamentary candidate, because win or lose, people ask you what you think about things that you've cared passionately about all your life. And so I was absolutely delighted to be invited here. And I can also pass on the thanks of the Bristol West Labour Party, who have recently discussed Trident and debated it very thoroughly, and passed a motion about 6 months ago supporting the motion, the move to scrap Trident. So I just wanted to get that bit out of the way, because I want to speak about why. It will be foolish of me to pretend that this is something on which we're completely united as a party. So I'm speaking as the parliamentary candidate for Bristol West. You're in Bristol West now, by the way. And some people will tell you that we can't scrap Trident, or that we've already invested too much, or that the programme of building will bring jobs and it will bring security, and they'll tell you that people want to feel secure and that nuclear weapons such as Trident help. And I know I'm speaking to the choir. I know you already know this. I just wanted to make sure I was clear about what I think our reasons are. So I wanted to deal with some of these myths, and I do think they are myths. So public support, as you've already mentioned, Kate, is low. People don't want Trident. A majority of people in recent years polling have said they want to scrap Trident. But also people have been saying they want to move towards full nuclear disarmament. And for me, this is an extraordinary moment in my lifetime to move between what I felt the public mood was, say, 20, 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And I was a little girl and we were thought of as slightly odd. And now I think most people basically agree with us. So most trade unions, including my own Unison, have said publicly that they want to scrap Trident. Many, not all, but many Labour politicians have also publicly stated their opposition to it. And with really good reason, because we can't point to our enemies on the map anymore. Or if we can, that doesn't seem to be deterring them. Those enemies, or whether we call them enemies or not, I'm not comfortable with that term, but people who we refer to as enemies, if they're states, they don't seem to be deterred by us having nuclear weapons. And if they're not states, where are we supposed to point the missiles? If it's terrorism that's the biggest threat, which many politicians will tell us that's our biggest threat at the moment, where do you point a Trident to find a terrorist? And it doesn't work, as I've already said. In my observation is that I haven't seen this working as a deterrent. Any country that we've been at war with in the last 20, 30 years, and we have, don't seem to have been deterred by us having a nuclear weapon. So I don't think it's working. It's costing money, which, as Tom has already said, we could be spending on other things. I mean, we could all make a very long list. It's a very large amount of money that's just being spent on building it, never mind maintaining it. And at the same time, for those people who don't like seeing reductions in our armed forces personnel, our armed forces personnel are being reduced by 20%. We could be spending that money on other things, even if we were just plugging holes in the defence budget. There's another conversation we could have about whether or not that's what we want to do with the money. I'd quite like it to build some houses and create some jobs. So Trident sucks up money. The employment argument, I believe, is completely false. I think it's a really nasty trick that's played on us, that we are going to be taking away workers' jobs if we shut down Trident. No, we won't. Good, skilled engineers are what we need, more than ever. We need good, skilled engineers to be building the energy sources of the future, to be helping to design homes that are affordable and can be heated and kept warm and well insulated, that are building bridges that people can use. We don't just need engineers to build weapons of mass destruction. And again, I know I'm preaching to the converted, but I just wanted to be clear. And I don't think it's in our national interest. The evidence seems to be that the USA gets to decide when and where and how we use the things anyway. We've signed treaties saying that we want to proceed towards nuclear disarmament. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't fit in with how I see Britain's role in the world over the next 20, 30, 100 years. So here are some things that I think we in the Labour Party need to do, and I personally as a Labour Party candidate need to do. And to be fair, I don't think we've done nothing. In government, we did scrap other nuclear weapons, we did sign up to the Test Ban Treaty, and we did reduce the alert status of submarines. Labour CND is a strong voice in the Labour Party. There are some of us here in the room and outside the room who are supporting us. We have, at the moment, Kindle, technology. My niece says don't print everything out, but it does lead to sort of, you press a button and you've sort of played. 57 members of the Labour Party, Parliamentary Labour Party, 57 MPs, last year signed Early Day Motion 96, I'm sure you all know about that, which was initiated by a Labour MP, and I hope that's not my phone, which I gave this nice woman here, with support from Lib Dems and the Green MP in May last year. That motion, you've probably all seen it, but it is basically saying we should be scrapping Trident. It just takes a few more words on that. So, my own CLP, as I said, last year, we discussed this at length. We debated it passionately. And by the end of the meeting, a well-attended meeting, I have to say, people wanted to discuss it. We were unanimous in saying that we wanted to support the Labour Party motion, the motion going to conference to scrap Trident. Nobody disagreed. We had other disagreements. Some people were pro or anti-nuclear power, and we decided we needed to discuss that as well. But in terms of nuclear weapons, and Trident in particular, we were united. So I am delighted, because I feel like I have my local party's backing as the parliamentary candidate for this constituency, to stand here and say to you, I'm utterly, utterly opposed to Trident, and I think it should be scrapped. The current Labour Party policy review does include debate on Trident, and whether you're members or not, you are welcome to contribute to that policy debate. There's a part of the Labour Party website called yourbritain.org.uk. It's open. You do have to register, but you don't have to become a member of the Labour Party. And there's a growing debate on those pages about scrapping Trident. I believe that an incoming Labour government in 2015 has to be able to take a positive, clear, strong message to the next non-proliferation treaty review conference. And I think this message should include scrapping Trident. In 1995, Robin Cook wrote that a Labour administration would have backed a nuclear weapons convention at that year's non-proliferation treaty review conference. And then fast forward 10 years, one of the last articles Robin Cook ever wrote showed clearly he made a really wonderful case for scrapping Trident and for the Labour Party, our party, to show that we are modernisers as a party by demonstrating our opposition to costly, deadly, murderous and pointless nuclear weapons. That's the part of the party that I stand in. I think our armed forces do more good as peacekeepers than as people pressing nuclear buttons. I think with overwhelming support from United Nations member states, from the public and the unions, the Labour Party should, and in my view, really should, in addition to announcing its commitment to scrapping Trident, state its support for negotiations to achieve a nuclear weapons convention and a nuclear-free world. Nuclear weapons-free world. I will do everything I possibly can in the role that I currently have as a parliamentary candidate, and hopefully your next Labour MP, those of you who live in Bristol West, to see that this happens. And I can assure you personally, and I'll stand here to bear witness to this, and that is a very quaking phrase, bearing witness, that I will do everything I can within my local party, but also within the national party, to ensure that we as a party support this. And I'm not going to use it in 2 minutes. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Thangam. That's great to hear that about the CLP.